My particular job is to give you what are the drugs which are already there in phase 3 and what are the promises immediately. Because when patients come to see me for consultation when the disease are progressing, I have to be realistic. I tell them I'm more than happy to see Discovery Channel with my grandchildren when I'm healthy, but I don't want to see the Discovery Channel sitting on a hospital bed. So, here we go. Oops, sorry. There we go. So what we're going to say is, has been already told by you all, and we are all here to know that there has been great strides or great progress has been made in multiple myeloma. And who of all, Paul Giusti showed that curve taking off. It's like a rocket taking off to the moon. So the novel agents have clearly improved the depth of response. That means more patients achieve very good partial remission, the terminology we use often, or complete remission. And that in turn has translated into people living longer. And the drugs which had made the differences are shown there: thalidomide, lenalidomide or Revlimid, and bortezomib or Velcade. Okay. Then, I really have to be honest. The next drugs, one of them is already approved, and just as recent as July 23rd, I believe, and we started using the drug it came to the warehouse on a Friday, and Monday we started using it at Mount Sinai, August 2nd, I believe. That is carfilzomib. And we are hoping the Christmas gift for us, all of us in the room, would be pomalidomide. And that's very important, because I will show you some data to show that these drugs literally mean life extension for patients with multiple myeloma. Then you have some new classes of drugs which have shown promise, which are histone deacetylase inhibitors, and some new class of drug like monoclonal antibodies. So, working on the same, getting a better lenalidomide or better Velcade is all very good, but we really want totally new classes of drug. And that's when genomics or personalized medicine really takes off, because if we have totally different drugs, works in a different mechanism, then we can find out by the personalized medicine which particular mutation or things have happened. And from your shelf full of chocolates, you can see which chocolate will work for you. If you have only 3 chocolates, doing the genomics and having 1,000 patients and 1 million permutation with 3 drugs, it really doesn't matter. So we hope that as we make progress in understanding of the cancer, we actually have progress in the pharma industry with new drugs. And then we would really reach the situation where we can have personalized medicine as a promise. So let's look at the drugs which are currently in clinical trial and or at the bedside. So we have proteasome inhibitors, and that is the carfilzomib. And then there are oral proteasome inhibitors, which is what we can call as oral Velcade. And we will hear more from Dixie Esseltyn on that. And so that has actually a name. That means this drug is going to get moved forward and get approved. It's no longer a numbered drug. Then the third drug is marizomib. Then we have immunomodulatory drug pomalidomide, which I said will be our Christmas gift. And we have the histone deacetylase inhibitor, panibinostat, vorinostat, and roslinostat, which is an ACY1215 coming out of Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, HDAC6 inhibitor. Then we have a couple of monoclonal antibodies which are very promising. So let's look at the first drug, a little bit about carfilzomib, which is now approved. It is a new drug. It's not a derivative of Velcade. It's a different drug, and it is an irreversible inhibitor, and it works better. So what does this mean to us? So I would say, the slides are there, but what it really means to a patient. I had a patient with Jehovah's Witness who had gone through thalidomide, lenalidomide. She could never go through transplant because she's a Jehovah's Witness. She had gone through the initial chemotherapy, standard chemotherapy, including melphalan, and thalidomide, and then lenalidomide. Then finally, she went on Velcade, and she had a dramatic response, but after 4 to 5 cycles, she had a severe peripheral neuropathy, so it was stopped because she had a really painful neuropathy. That remission lasted for 1.5 years, even though the drug was given only for 4 cycles. That remission lasted for a year and a half without any maintenance. Then when her cancer came back, we again tried lenalidomide, didn't work. Then luckily she was able to participate on carfilzomib. She went on this clinical trial on carfilzomib. She was on it for a year. And then, the clinical trial, the one she participated, it was only 12 cycle by design. So she had to come off. And of course, they wouldn't give me compassionate use, etc. at that time in the drug development stage. So she had to come off. So luckily, she went on another drug, pomalidomide. It got her some response, and then it came back. And then later on, we were able to get compassionate use, single patient exception. And she has been on it for 3 years on the compassionate and 1 year before. So more than 4 years. So this was a lady who has been on this drug for such a long time, and probably the longest. And that's what the company acknowledged and actually took her, flew her to Seattle, I believe. And so you could see how these drugs can make a big difference. So when we say we are working hard, we want a new drug and bring it to the bedside, people are literally living from one to one. I do not know how many people knew about the lady who was instrumental for Law for Life and raised enormous amount of money. And she had gone through chemotherapy, standard chemotherapy, stem cell transplantation, Velcade, Revlimid. And then for her, pomalidomide was the key drug, which kept her going for 2 years. And then afterwards, when it came back, she even went on carfilzomib. And by that time, she lost the battle to the cancer. So you could see how these drugs, when they get approved, it is meaningful. That's why I only put the drugs just to get over quickly. The drugs which are literally in pipeline, literally will be a Christmas gift for pomalidomide, something which will be there, and hopefully the next few drugs will be there within a year or two. And that's where MMRC has played a pivotal role. Part of it, as an MMRF association, you got to remember, Joe Levesque is there, and he can correct me, he's the VP of that company. You need multiple people going in front of FDA. You need patient advocacy group. So we looked at a single agent activity of this drug. So we were all worried, this has to show activity better than Velcade, and it has to do miraculously find a cure or keep them in remission long term. But in real life, that's not how drug and the progress is made. Even 6 months, even 3 months means a lot, because in some patient, it could be like in that Jehovah's Witness patient, it could mean a life for 4 years or 5 years. It may not happen in all patients. So MMRF went to FDA even before they were in front of them, making a pitch saying that, look at this drug in terms of what it means to patients. There are a lot of patients across the country from our association who are participating, who really believe in this drug, and it is a safer drug, and it is. So don't use your yardstick that it has to improve life expectancy, keep in remission for 1 year, life expectancy 2 years, etc. You also have to approve drugs which give incremental improvement, because then the doctors have the opportunity to use one over the other depending upon some patient gets neuropathy, some patient doesn't. And we still do not know, whether in some cases Velcade may work, bortezomib may work, and in another case, carfilzomib may work. So people who have failed carfilzomib have responded to bortezomib. We still don't know the details, why it happens. But having access to the drug is key. So the MMRF and MMRC, in addition to allowing the clinical trial, MMRF goes in front of the FDA and is your greatest advocacy in front of FDA to approve drug. So we all had a great sigh of relief. And I'm sure immediately Celgene was very happy, because they feel like now they are definitely going to get the pomalidomide, so they are looking forward for the Christmas gift. So these things, this is really important. When they went in front of the FDA, there were a lot of naysayers and people were really holding their breath. And we are happy that we were able to convince Richard Pasteur and Ken and Kathy. They all made an impact, because after all, agencies are also made out of people. You got to remember that. Agency is not an anonymous body or computer which you supply some information. So I want you to keep in mind, this makes a big difference what MMRF has done in getting the drugs out. This shows you the information that the patient's response rate to carfilzomib in patients who had already had failed all available drug, including lenalidomide and bortezomib, when this drug was used by itself, showing a robust response rate and durable response of 8.3 months for patients who achieved at least a minor response or better. So it clearly is meaningful for patients who would have otherwise lost their battle. So now you got to remember another important thing which is lost in people, but physicians like me who are every day seeing patients or getting consultation, there are patients who can participate in clinical trial. You know, they have to have a good kidney function, good liver function, good heart, good lungs, you know, almost like a marathon runner. Only thing was the cancer is showing some progress. But many of the patients who have gone through all the battles of fighting the cancer over a period of time, you know, they are also physiologically not so well. You know, they may have had a previous heart attack, etc. They may not be a clinical, candidates. They might have had diabetes and other complication, or the kidney is slightly worse because of myeloma. So the creatinine is now 3. That patient couldn't have gone in clinical trial because the creatinine was only 2 or below can participate. But making the drug available now, I have the opportunity to give carfilzomib in patients with renal impairment, because there was another study done where carfilzomib was found to be safer even with renal impairment. But the study that was made available to me, I had to look in a patient. Sorry, this is a promising drug, but I can't give it to you because my protocol says that the creatinine should be less than 2, and you know, the medical director or the medical monitor the drug company has to make sure we adhere to the protocol would not give exception. And these days, getting compassionate individual use, it's really a little bit of a joke. You know, there was a pharma which said, Dr. Jagannath, we'll make you this drug available compassionate use. By the time I want to use a compassionate use and apply, you send it to FDA, they have to rule for a month. They have to wait till they say no. And then my IRB has to approve. They will say why you are getting compassionate use, how many patients you're going to do, how many things. It has looked down upon. For a while, FDA was really looking down upon. So in reality, compassionate use is not a real good mechanism. Getting the drug approved or having an expanded access program, CMAP. So you saw the graph before, CMAP sites, where MMRC worked with Onyx to make sure CMAP was available nationwide across the nation. So it doesn't matter if the patient is in Needville, Texas, they also have myeloma and they need the drug too, not just only patient in Manhattan, living in Fifth Avenue with the Fifth Avenue address can have access to the drug. So I think MMRF and MMRC has played a pivotal role in this area. So let's look at carfilzomib. We know when the drug is being developed, quite often they use it as a single drug. They want it approved so that drug company can market it, and they can. They don't want to be hobbled with another drug company's drug or whatever. But we know once the drug is approved, you can use these drugs in combination. So when you use the proteasome inhibitor with an immunomodulatory drug, with lenalidomide and dexamethasone, in this case with carfilzomib, it works even better. So now a patient comes to me as of August 2nd, I wouldn't be giving only carfilzomib for a patient who relapsed and failed everything else. That's silly. For a response rate of 25%, I want a better batting average. So I use carfilzomib with cyclophosphamide or lenalidomide or thalidomide, looking at the patient's history. So I automatically use it in combination. Even though my hospital says, where is the evidence? You can't use this drug because only evidence-based medicine will be approved. I actually literally had to tell my institution, all my life, believe it or not, I have been developing evidence. I have never practiced evidence-based medicine. And that's the honest truth. From the time of stem cell transplantation for myeloma, when I started in Arkansas as the chief of bone marrow transplant, it was not approved. Blue Cross Blue Shield Empire State will not approve transplant in New York, but they will approve in Arkansas because NIH, it was NIH funded, so they couldn't. And we had lawyers ready in case Empire Blue Cross or somebody from Florida or California refused insurance, we can make a call, because they would be saying NIH, National Institute of Health, or NCI designated protocol is not funded in this country by this thing. That will become a problem. So that's why in Arkansas, we had both coasts sending patients, and we established the program starting at 1989. So you could really see how it is. So from that time onwards, I've never done evidence-based medicine. So it really, they finally let me go at Mount Sinai to be able to combine and do and help develop the evidence rather than use only evidence-based medicine. So clearly, we are going to, they are doing a phase 3 trial, and I'm sure it's going to be very, very positive. Then the next thing we also wanted to know is what is the next progress, coming to the hospital and getting treatment. So everybody is busy, everybody wants to get on with their life. So we don't want to be diagnosed with myeloma and then pretty much condemned to coming to a hospital twice a week, 3 times a week, so your entire family, because not only the person who has cancer has to deal with it, but the spouse or the family member is also affected. So they are walking with them or working with them. So developing an oral drug, may not be great for the cancer centers, but it is fantastic for the patients because they can take the medicine and be at home. So it is fantastic that we have an oral proteasome inhibitor. And the beauty of it is this drug seems to be a little bit more efficacious, at least from my experience with it. It seems to be even better than Velcade, even though it is supposedly a similar compound. Maybe the bioavailability, maybe how the drug is available to the patient, the side effect profile is better. So I'm pretty sure this will be another dynamite drug. And so we are all expecting that the oral drug, it has a name. Sorry, when I was making the slide, I had to come here to know the name of the drug. Now it has a name, I'm pretty sure it's going to be approved. So we can say that, this is the first orally available. So Millennium always tries to put that first orally available. And of course, all the side effects are always manageable. Dixie, did I get it right? Let me give full declaration. I have been a paid speaker for this particular molecule. So that's a full disclosure. Okay, so I knew all the terms to use. Okay, now coming back to the immunomodulatory molecule. This is another thing. I just put the cartoon not because I want to educate, but I was really surprised. You look at the thalidomide and look at the oxygen ring on the second circle. There is an oxygen ring on the bottom. Then you look at the lenalidomide. There is a nitrogen N stands there on that. And then you look at the pomalidomide, it has the oxygen and the nitrogen molecule. So it's basically a combination. But let me tell you, subtle modification in the structure means dramatic difference at the bedside. And what I'm really impressed about is this drug really works when patient has failed both lenalidomide, literally progressing on Velcade, Revlimid, and dexamethasone, and has failed transplant, etc. And at the end of it, I had no access, so I had to send the patient to, Cornell, to Rubin Niswitzky, not one patient, multiple patients, and then more recently to Yale University to Madhav Dodapkar. The patients in whom I said, my God, things are really, really bad. You better run and get it done. And I called those doctors so that they don't give up and down, that they will really get in the medication. They have dramatic responses, and patients have stayed fantastic for 2 years and longer, and coming and giving me a hug here. I haven't forgotten you, Dr. Jagannath, even though I don't have to see you. That's always fantastic news. So the numbers don't justify, 25%. Individual patient story dramatically changes. That's why you need patient advocacy group going in front of the FDA to bring them to the reality, saying that 25% response rate in lenalidomide refractory, blah, blah, and is that really worthwhile? It really means people living 2 years and 3 years on this drug alone without combining it, because in the clinical trial, you can't combine it with any other drug other than dexamethasone. You can only reduce the dose or stop it. You can't do anything else with it. That's why I'm hoping that this drug gets approved by Christmas. Then I really don't care calling Celgene, I need this drug for a patient, and then listen to them for 2 hours giving me a lecture. Sundar, remember, I'm coming up next. Anyway, because The drugs are life-saving, and this is the reality, I say my patient, when I say, Dr. Jagannath, I've been with you for 10, 15 years, I don't want to go to another center, all these things. I said, you know what, it is not Dr. Jagannath, and it is not Mount Sinai or anything. If there is a cure in Timbuktu, even though it's a politically not the correct place to be, even if there is a cure in Timbuktu, we will all march to Timbuktu. And that is the bottom line. So it's very important to keep that in mind and definitely keep my feet on the ground. So this is the pomalidomide, again, in France, showing, again, dramatic responses. The numbers, in all honesty, we are waiting for Christmas rather than looking at the details of this drug. And then this is another drug, panibonostat. While this one is panibonostat, it's an histone deacetylase inhibitor. I'll tell you how difficult it is to get drugs into the bedside. So we had another drug called vorinostat, and they spent $40 million to run a clinical trial, and I was a PI for this international trial. And we had certain objective that it has to have certain response rate, it has to keep the disease under control, and it should do better than Velcade alone. So Velcade versus Velcade plus vorinostat. It met all those criteria. It did produce better results, but the ultimate outcome was, even though we had the p-value, the durability increase was about a month better, and the big pharma had enough depth of pocket. They said, oh, we are not going to go in front of FDA and bother getting the drug approved. That's that. So X number of patients, and this is not a small study, international, I don't know, 400 patients. I should know, I'm an author on that study. Anyway, hundreds of patients participating on the clinical trial, and it met all the mark on the statistical thing, and yet the big pharma said, they may look up and down, we really don't want to, and this drug will get out of patent for a year and a half or no, for this. They just niched it. So there is a lot more to it when we are the patient, how this big pharma and market force alone. That's why I said market force alone wouldn't do it, especially when we talk about Kathy Giusti passionately pleading that we need the genomics protocol and it'll be a public domain. Market forces alone would not, because institution would like to have the genomics done in their institution and hope to patent something they discovered, so that even if a drug is going to be developed, that institution, that university will get money from the pharma before they will. DKK1 discovered in Arkansas, they will say they will patent it, then they will release to Novartis or whatever, then they can have the drug, but they would want a patent. So nobody would like to share. They can say what they want, but they will look at the data first. They will make sure they can patent anything out of it before they will share anything. So this is politically is a brave move on the part of the patients and the MMRF to raise so much millions, I guess $40 million, to put it in public domain and change the entire, not only for myeloma, you're just basically changing it for every cancer, because nobody wants to do that. Make it in public domain, because drug companies have, they like to have patent and they have to have this thing, and identifying a gene and drug, etc. is important, and it went up to Supreme Court. It didn't come out with any particular answer whether a particular human gene can be patented or not. But this is a bold move, and I was really, blown away when I was told that Dixie and Millennium is very much behind it, and Onyx is behind it, and things like that. That is really phenomenal, that people would really put money behind such an effort to keep it in public domain. Once you change the paradigm and you put it in public domain and people try to look at it, so the brilliant scientists could be in Florida, it may not even be part of MMRF, could then make an astounding observation, you all will benefit, and you will change the face forever for all diseases, breast cancer, prostate cancer, whatever it is. So I think this is really, give a huge credit that, she will go after it, Kathy Giusti will go after it, and, actually undermine, Harvard from patenting even more. Let's go here. So this is the Vantage 088. I showed you here. Clearly all the points we wanted to make, all the things we did hit the points. It did improve the response rate. It improved the progression-free survival, etc. but then the drug company said, we are not going to spend money to get the drug approved. So now if I want to use vorinostat for a patient, in a selected patient, it's a big deal to see whether the insurance company will pay or not or something like that. So it is really. Here is a number of things. The only reason I put it here is because we already saw the MMRC. You can see the couple of antibodies which is on the top, ilotuzumab, and that is an antibody which is showing tremendous promise. What it does is, this is where the partnership really matters. It actually works. It needs lenalidomide, and with lenalidomide, it makes lenalidomide work even better, because lenalidomide boosts your immune system. This antibody goes and attaches to the cancer cell, so now it makes the cancer cell visible to the immune system so they can really knock it off. So the two drugs work phenomenally together, and this is also a good story where two big pharmas have worked together to make it really happen. And I know, because I'm politically incorrect, I was at a time when this drug was held by another company, and working with Celgene, they were not very easy at that time. They had to buy the drug and do the clinical trial. So first time, we only had it for 6 cycle or 8 cycle, and the study closed. Thank God, within that 6 cycle, it showed such a promise. Then everybody was willing to put the money in. Thanks for the, market forces. I tell you, you got to be in this field to really know what goes on in the background. But anyway, so I'll stop here. But the real action is in the drug company. What is that? Oh, this is 0 to, oh, finally. It did come. Sorry, okay. But anyway, the slides are only a prop. I should be talking like Paul. Why do we need slides? There is a message. I'm hopefully giving the message. The slide is now becoming a distraction anyway. So we are here for fundraising, and I really want to make sure we do a good job. So here's the ilotuzumab, 10 milligram per kilogram does well. One thing that is fantastic is ilotuzumab is a humanized monoclonal antibody, and it's well tolerated, very minimal side effect, doesn't cause your hair to fall off or nail to fall off, or what happens, the blood counts to drop. So it is so safe and so effective. For the first time, for those patients who are considered smoldering myeloma and they are trending towards multiple myeloma, before we will wait, well, you wait a little longer till you develop a symptom. Now we can say these patients can go on a drug like this and actually try to delay the progression to myeloma. So this drug is now coming into, these kind of drugs are now coming into quote unquote high-risk asymptomatic myeloma. So that's why the monoclonal antibodies are good. There is another drug, daratumumab, and that is also a very good drug. Somebody, Janssen, I think, has immediately grabbed the drug from the small pharma because they wanted to become a big player. So I guess that's an anti-CD38 monoclonal antibody, human monoclonal antibody, which by itself shows activity, So I guess they don't need partnership, but it's a good drug. So these are all new avenues to finding a cure for myeloma. So here there's a bunch of them, daratumumab, cetuximab, and all these different things which are there. So what else do we have? So there is a whole bunch of compound. You saw even greater list on MMRC. See, my list is smaller. I got to get more clinical trials, I guess. With that, I will stop here. Thank you very much.